The heavy rain started without warning, turning the sky dark in an instant. I stood awkwardly under the awning of a closed shop, trying to stay dry as I watched the downpour. An hour ago, Leo Vance had promised he would come to the market to pick me up, but there was still no sign of his car. I watched as other women sheltering nearby were met by their boyfriends or husbands, who hurried toward them, carefully tilting umbrellas to shield them from the rain. I imagined Leo was doing the same thing right now, but for Sophia Hayes, the woman he had loved since he was young. They had missed their chance together because of a twist of fate. I'd heard she had a difficult time after she married someone else. During the 3 months of her divorce, her mother passed away, and Leo was often sick with worry, unable to sleep, and sighing constantly. Today was the day she finally finalized her divorce and returned home. I knew that this morning, Leo had taken a shower and put on a brand new suit. The tie he chose had a specific pattern, one I recognized as not being from the collection I had carefully curated for him during our marriage. It was a small detail, but it said everything. The rain hammered down on the pavement, a sound like frying beans. In that moment, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I saw a cleaning lady passing by with a worn-out umbrella, and I smiled at her. "Auntie," I called out, waving her over. I traded the fresh seafood I had just bought for her old umbrella. Her happy expression made me smile too. The umbrella was old, but it could offer more protection from the wind and rain than a man who was always late. I walked out from under the awning and hailed a taxi. It wasn't until I arrived at the airport that I realized I had nowhere specific to go. The only family I had left was my grandmother, but if I went to her now, she would immediately know something was wrong and that I had been hurt. So I walked up to the counter and simply bought a ticket for the next available flight. I thought to myself that anywhere would be fine, as long as it was a place without Leo Vance and Sophia Hayes. Our 3 years of marriage had been silently suffocated by her presence, like air you can't see but can't escape. I couldn't bear it any longer. Just as I was about to board the plane, my phone rang. It was Leo. I hesitated for a moment, then let it ring until it went silent. Before turning my phone off, I added his number to my blacklist. Leo Vance returned home at 6 o'clock. When the car pulled up, only the servant came out to greet him. He paused, taking off his coat but holding it over his arm instead of handing it over. "Where is Clara?" he asked. "The madam hasn't returned yet," the servant replied. Leo stopped walking. It was only then that he remembered Clara had gone to the market to buy seafood for dinner. He had told her he would pick her up, but Sophie had fainted from grief at her mother's grave. In his rush to get Sophia to the hospital, he had completely forgotten about his wife. He glanced at the torrential rain outside and felt a flicker of guilt. Clara might be angry, but the thought passed as quickly as it came. He smiled to himself, shaking his head slightly. He had never met a woman as gentle and forgiving as his wife. She would never get angry over something so trivial. "Sir, you're wet from the rain. You should go take a hot bath," the servant suggested. Leo nodded. "If Clara gets back, tell her I'm upstairs." He went to his room and showered, but for some reason, the warm water didn't ease the strange feeling of unease that had settled in his chest. When he got out, he felt a bit stuffy and went to look for some cold medicine, but he couldn't find the medicine cabinet. He glanced at his watch. It was nearly 7, and Clara still wasn't home. The rain had lessened, but the sky was now completely dark. He picked up his phone and dialed her number. It rang for a long time with no answer, eventually disconnecting. He frowned. This had never happened before. Clara always answered his calls. He figured the heavy rain had probably caused traffic delays, or maybe she had a minor issue on the road. A sudden tightness gripped his chest. He quickly dialed again, but this time the call wouldn't go through at all. His brow furrowed, his expression turning cold. He tried a third time, but the result was the same. He stood there for a while, holding his phone, before doing a quick search online. He discovered he had been blacklisted. Leo let out a short, angry laugh. He decided he had to take back his earlier thought about his wife's gentle and generous nature. By the time the plane landed in the unfamiliar city, it was late at night. As soon as my phone reconnected to the network, messages began to flood in. I noticed a series of texts from an unknown number. "Hello, Clara. This is Sophia. I heard you and Leo had an argument because of me and that you left home. I'm very sorry and worried. I feel I need to explain things. Leo did like me, but that was a long time ago. He has always treated me like a sister, and I see him as a brother. I never wanted to cause a problem between you two. No one wants Leo to be happy more than I do. Clara, when you get this, could you please call him? Or at least let us know you're safe? I found the message ridiculous. If they were truly worried about my safety, there were 100 ways to find me. With the Vance family's resources, tracking my ID information would be simple. Yet the first person to reach out wasn't the police, but Sophia. It was a pattern I had come to hate. Any small event in my life, Sophia seemed to know about it almost instantly. I didn't reply, but she was persistent and called me. I answered the call but said nothing. After a moment of silence, a low laugh came from the other end. "So, you're not quite what Leo described," Sophia's voice said, laced with something new. "You're more patient than I thought. It's only been 3 years, and now you're finally making trouble, Clara Reed." Her tone shifted, dropping the pretense. "Since you've decided to give up your place, I'll make sure Leo gives you a generous alimony." I smiled. "Miss Hayes, you've been through a difficult divorce yourself, so you must be very experienced in these matters. I'll leave it to you then. If the settlement is good, I'll be sure to buy you a coffee." After saying that, I hung up, blacklisted her number, and set my phone to block all unknown callers. 3 days after I left, Leo Vance called my grandmother, who lived thousands of miles away. After some polite conversation, he casually asked, "Grandma, Clara mentioned a few days ago that she wanted to come visit you." "There's no need for her to come all this way," my grandmother replied. "I'm doing just fine. It's too long of a journey. Don't have her bother." Leo was standing on the large terrace of our home, watching the sunset. He felt his heart sink along with the fading light. He had assumed that I was just upset and had run off to my grandmother's place, my only remaining family. But she wasn't there. Where had I gone? He turned back into the bedroom and his eyes fell on my dressing table. It was as neat as always, but my comb had been left out. He walked over and picked it up, noticing a few of my long, dark hairs tangled in the bristles. I had never dyed or treated my hair. He gripped the comb tightly, lost in thought, until Sophia's second call brought him back to reality. "Leo, I just passed by the house. The roses in your garden have all withered." Sophia's voice came softly through the phone. "You should have the gardener clear them out. It looks terrible." "No, leave them," he said, refusing her for the first time. Sophia was clearly surprised. "Leo, are you angry with me?" she asked, her voice trembling. "You're right, this is your home with Clara. It's for her to decide." Her voice broke into a sob. Leo's heart softened. "That's not what I meant, Sophia. Has there been any news from Clara?" "No, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come back," she said, crying softly. Leo listened to her fragmented sobs and felt an unfamiliar wave of irritation. Clara rarely cried. The only times he could remember were on their wedding night because she was in pain, and once during their first year of marriage when he missed her birthday. That was because Sophia's husband had been abusive, and he had flown abroad overnight, consumed with worry for her. He felt inexplicably agitated. After 3 years together, he was just now discovering this stubborn, willful side of his wife. He walked over and sat on the edge of the bed. After a long moment, he called my only close friend. She was surprised to hear from him and confirmed that she hadn't heard from me either. I hadn't gone to her city. When Leo hung up the phone, his hands were trembling slightly. He lit a cigarette but didn't smoke it. Clara was obsessed with cleanliness. When she was home, every corner of the house was spotless. The house phone rang. It was a strange landline number. Normally, he would never answer such a call, but this time he picked it up immediately. "Hello?" he said, his voice shaking. "Leo, it's me, Clara." Hearing my familiar voice, Leo, who was usually so composed, felt a surge of sharp anger. "Clara, you're not a child. Running away from home is an immature thing to do. Do you have any idea the kind of negative attention this could bring to the Vance family if the word got out?" "I'm sorry," I said. He gripped the phone tighter and loosened his tie, feeling as if a great weight had been lifted from his chest. If you know you were wrong, then come back. His tone softened. Leo, I'm calling about something else. What is it? I sent you something. It should have arrived by now. What did you need to send? Can't you just bring it with you when you come home? My voice remained gentle and calm. I'm not coming home anymore, Leo. Please make sure you sign for the package. If you have no objections after you read it, please sign it. I'll call you again in 2 days. I'm borrowing this phone, so don't call back. Clara, what are you talking about? He felt the heart that had just settled tense up again. Leo, I haven't been happy for the 3 years we've been married. Let's get a divorce. He didn't speak, and I waited politely for his response. Where are you? He finally asked. Doesn't matter. He glanced out at the quiet dusk. Clara, what are you so upset about? On the other end, I didn't say anything more. I seemed to let out a quiet laugh, and then I hung up. He instinctively called back, but a strange woman answered, speaking in a dialect he couldn't understand. He apologized and hung up. The darkness of the evening enveloped him as he sat motionless in the twilight. For 3 years, Clara had been like a cup of lukewarm water, always a comfortable 45 degrees. She never got angry, never lost her temper, and always spoke softly. Everyone praised her, so much so that he had almost forgotten how their marriage began. It was a deal between their families, a favor she had leveraged to secure her position as the daughter-in-law of the Vance family. He realized now that a woman who could do that couldn't possibly be as simple and harmless as she appeared. He walked to the dressing table, dropped the comb, and saw his reflection in the mirror. His brows were furrowed in anger. He, who never showed his emotions, was completely rattled by this. He smoothed his expression, went downstairs, and found Sophia waiting in the living room. He asked the servant for the day's mail, found the envelope from me, and opened it. Sophia stood nearby and gasped, covering her mouth. Without a change in his expression, Leo tore the divorce agreement into pieces and threw it in the trash. Leo, Sophia stepped forward, gently touching his sleeve. Don't be angry. Clara must be acting on impulse. She's always been so gentle. She continued, I suppose it's my fault. If I hadn't come back, she wouldn't be so upset. Leo replied coldly, This has nothing to do with you. She's just being unreasonable because I've spoiled her. Sophia forced a smile. But I heard you two were so happy together. Before she could finish, she started to cry. Leo sneered. Why do you think I married her? Others might not know the reason, but you certainly do. Don't you, Sophia? She looked at him with tear-filled eyes. Leo, was it really because of me? He didn't answer, simply pulling his arm away. I have to go out. Should I have the driver take you home, or will you stay here? Sophia wiped her tears. I'll wait for you. With you and Clara fighting like this, I wouldn't be able to sleep anyway. He nodded, told the servant to prepare the guest room, and left. Sophia watched him go, her eyes landing on the torn papers in the trash can. She pressed her lips together and sat down on the sofa. Leo wondered why he had torn up the agreement, acting as if he had no intention of divorcing me at all. I knew that he could easily find out where I was. It was only a matter of whether he wanted to. So, when I saw him standing downstairs at the guest house, I wasn't surprised. In the cool autumn air, he wore a thin, gray trench coat, leaning against his car and smoking. He was handsome and tall, and he drew attention without trying. In contrast, I felt plain. I wore a loose linen dress, my hair tied back with a handkerchief, and no makeup. I was carrying a grocery bag. I looked more like one of the maids from the Vance estate. When we first married, I often felt inadequate, but I had long since made peace with it. He put out his cigarette and looked at me, his expression unreadable. I set down the heavy shopping bag. He glanced at his watch. Go pack your things. You have 30 minutes. Did you sign it? I asked, holding up my hand. Give me the signed divorce agreement, and I'll go back with you to finalize the paperwork. His indifferent eyes darkened slightly. This is not a good time to announce our divorce. Then we won't announce it. We just need to complete the legal process. Clara, you know the company's anniversary celebration is next week. You're expected to be there with me. A sarcastic smile touched his lips. Your timing is very precise, but you should know that I'm not easily manipulated. I just looked at him quietly. We had been husband and wife, but he had never loved me. The rain that day hadn't soaked my clothes, but it had drenched my heart, a feeling he would never understand. If you sign the papers, I will attend the anniversary party with you. I will cooperate with whatever you need for the company's sake. I even managed a gentle smile, just like before. This won't harm you in any way, Leo. He stared at me for a long time before finally nodding. Fine. After the celebration, I'll sign. I didn't return with him that day, flying back to the city the day before the event. To avoid any rumors, he picked me up from the airport himself and drove me back to our home. When we arrived, Sophia greeted us at the door as if she were the hostess. Clara, you're finally back, she said, rushing forward to take my hand, her eyes red as if she'd been crying. I looked at her, unmoved. Her clothes, her jewelry, her makeup. It was all carefully chosen to project an image of understated luxury. I pulled my hand away from her perfectly manicured fingers. My own hands were bare, the wedding ring long gone, with a small callus on my palm. There was a time I foolishly compared myself to her, but now her beauty meant nothing to me. I walked past her without a word. Madam, let me take your bag, a servant offered. No need, I said with a smile, moving away. The servant looked helplessly at Leo. Let her be, he said, his gaze following me as he walked toward the main house. But I didn't follow him. Instead, I went to the guest annex. Clara, read! Leo's voice was sharp with anger. My actions in front of the staff had clearly embarrassed both him and Sophia. I didn't stop or respond. I just wanted the party to be over so our marriage could finally end. At the banquet hall, Leo and I entered hand in hand. He played the part of the considerate husband, and I was the gentle, adored wife. He held my hand tightly as we spoke to guests, his glances full of feigned tenderness. I would smile back, a false mask hiding my true feelings. I just wanted it all to end. Toward the end of the dinner, a plate of sashimi was placed in front of me. The faint smell made my stomach turn, and I rushed to the bathroom, where I vomited until I felt my vision go black and I fainted. When I woke up, I was in a hospital room surrounded by members of the Vance family. Leo was sitting by my bed, holding my hand, a rare, genuine smile on his face. Clara, you're pregnant, he said softly. 45 days. For a moment, I was stunned. Leo was rarely this tender. His affection was usually reserved for Sophia. Now, his tenderness wasn't for me, but for the child inside me. Grandma already knows, he continued, his smile unwavering. I've arranged for someone to bring her here. She was so happy she cried on the phone. Lying in the bed, I started to cry too. For 3 years, my inability to get pregnant had been a constant source of worry for my grandmother. She never knew it was because Leo didn't want children yet, always careful about contraception. Why was he so happy now? After his family left, the room was quiet. Leo brought me a glass of water. Don't talk about the divorce anymore, he said. Just focus on your health and the baby. I pushed the glass away. I don't want this child. His expression didn't change. Then you can be the one to tell Grandma, as long as you're willing to let her worry at her age. He was certain I would compromise for my grandmother's sake, but he forgot that my grandmother was a woman who had fought against her family, defied tradition, and raised her daughter alone. She would support my decision, whatever it was. Leo dropped everything at his company to take care of me. The news of my fainting and pregnancy had spread, and reporters were camped outside the hospital. On the day of my discharge, the Vance family arrived in a grand display. Everyone said I was a winner in life, a beautiful marriage, a caring husband, and now a child on the way. It was funny how a woman's success was so often measured by the man she married, with no regard for the reality of her life. Sophia has already left the city, Leo told me in the car, holding my hand. Her grandparents wanted her to go live with them. I told you, Clara, there's nothing romantic between us. We grew up together. She got this scar on her forehead, saving me when we were kids. I liked her when we were young, but now she's just like a sister. You have no reason to be upset over this. But since you care, I'll be more careful. I won't meet with her privately anymore. He pulled me into his arms and, let's put this behind us. We'll have our child and live happily together. For a moment, I almost believed him. I'd heard that pregnancy hormones can make a woman reluctant to harm the life inside her. I was conflicted and shaken. My grandmother had even told me that a husband can belong to someone else, but a child is always your own. I started to think that maybe this pregnancy was a second chance for us. But just as I was wavering, Sophia found a way to contact me. "Do you know why Leo suddenly stopped using protection 6 months ago?" she asked on the phone. I was startled. It was true. That was around the time I had first decided I wanted a divorce. "He knew you were planning to leave him." Sophia laughed, a harsh, desolate sound. "Clara, I can't have children. If I could, do you think he ever would have compromised and married you? This baby, it was only conceived to pave the way for me. I shouldn't be telling you this now. I should have waited until the child was born. But I've changed my mind." Her voice was laced with a vengeful jealousy. "I would rather destroy this path for myself than let you give birth to Leo's child." I sat there, a deep chill spreading through my body. But I didn't cry. Instead, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. At that moment, any lingering feelings I had for Leo vanished completely. "Sophia," I said, my voice steady, "thank you for telling me this. Don't hate me, Clara. I just love him too much. Love is always selfish." I ended the call and walked to the window. In the garden, the last rose of the season fell from its branch, its petals scattering on the ground. The flowers had fallen. The dream was over. That evening, I cooked dinner for Leo for the last time. I wore a light green dress, one he found familiar. He remembered I wore a similar one the first day they met. Back then, he was bitter about losing Sophia and only met me to appease his family, planning to dismiss me cruelly. But when he started to speak, my eyes had welled up with tears. I had apologized over and over, embarrassed by his harsh words, and he had found himself moved by my sincerity. He had asked me to marry him, half joking at first, but something had shifted. 3 months later, we were engaged and married 7 months after that. Now, 3 years later, with a child on the way, he felt a strange mix of emotions. The child was part of a plan, but his happiness was complicated. He found himself wondering if it would be a boy or a girl, and hoping that if it was a girl, she would look like me. The thought confused him. This child was supposed to call Sophia Mother. He felt things spiraling out of his control, but strangely, he didn't want to stop it. I wasn't suffering from morning sickness that day, and I even drank a little fruit wine with him. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, noticing the subtle makeup and the color of my lipstick. I smiled, and he smiled back, coming to stand behind my chair. He leaned in close, his nose brushing against my hair. "I had the servants move your things back to the master bedroom," he said. I didn't respond, just clinked my glass against his. Later, we walked in the garden under the moon. I was quiet, and he followed behind me, feeling a sense of peace. He couldn't remember much after that. He slept soundly, and when he woke up late the next day, the other side of the bed was empty. I hadn't come back to the room. He didn't know it then, but I would never set foot in that house again. When I came out of the surgery, my grandmother was waiting. She wrapped me in a thick coat, but I was still shivering. A dull pain throbbed deep in my abdomen. She placed a hot water bottle there and held my hand as we left. At the hospital gate, Leo's car was waiting. He got out, his face a mask of fury. My grandmother tried to step in front of me, but I shook my head. He strode over and grabbed my shoulders. "Clara, where is the child?" "It's gone." "How could you?" he hissed, his grip tightening. I could see the pain and anger in his eyes. "Does it hurt?" I asked calmly, prying his fingers off me one by one. "Good. Now please sign the papers so we can get divorced." "I will not divorce you," he said through gritted teeth. I wasn't surprised. "Then we'll go to court. I don't mind turning our story into public gossip." Just as he was about to reply, his phone rang. I heard him say Sophia's name. His expression changed. "I'll be right there," he said into the phone and then looked at me. "Clara, wait for me. We need to talk." But I didn't wait. I went straight to see his mother, Mrs. Vance. I told her everything Sophia had said, word for word. Mrs. Vance had been the one to break up Leo and Sophia in the first place because of Sophia's inability to have children. She had been genuinely happy about my pregnancy. Now, with her grandson gone, Her anger toward me was nothing compared to her fury at Sophia. Mrs. Vance was a decisive woman. Just as she had forced Sophia into a marriage far away years ago, she acted swiftly now. Leo and I were divorced quickly, and under pressure from the Vance family, Sophia's family began forcing her to marry again. I heard she even threatened suicide and that Leo was determined to marry her, an idea that earned him 2 slaps from his mother and the threat of being disowned. But none of that mattered to me anymore. I moved with my grandmother to her small home in a town 1,000 miles away. I renovated her little courtyard, planning to fill it with roses in the spring. Not long after, Leo came to visit. He didn't knock, just stood outside the gate for hours before leaving at dawn. The next morning, I saw him again when I went out to get milk. In the cold winter air, he wore only a thin coat while I was bundled in my grandmother's thick robe. We were from 2 different worlds. The neighbors stared at this handsome, wealthy man in our small town. I glanced at him once and looked away. He followed me silently until I reached my gate. "Clara," he finally said. I didn't stop. As I pushed the gate open, he stepped forward to block it. "Sophia is getting married next spring." I had never lost my temper in my life, but in that moment, something snapped. The carton of warm milk in my hand went flying, splashing all over his face and expensive coat. He stood there, stunned. "Leo Vance," I said, my voice shaking with a rage I didn't know I had. "If you were marrying her, I might still respect you as a man. But you won't, because you're not willing to give up your inheritance. It seems you don't love her that much after all." He didn't know how to tell me that it wasn't true. He didn't love her that much anymore, but it had nothing to do with money. After I became pregnant, he had genuinely wanted to be a family with me. The ugly plan he'd made with Sophia was something he had intended to bury forever. But she had told me everything, and I had acted without hesitation. The moment he learned the child was gone, he knew he had lost me for good. A fallen rose can never be put back on the stem, but my presence lingered everywhere in his life. The servants would mention me, and every day when he came home at 6, he would hope, foolishly, that I would be there. He once thought I was like a glass of plain water, an unimportant part of his life. But he was learning that a person can't live without water. He visited my town 9 times. On the 9th visit, he saw it. It was raining heavily, just like the day he forgot to pick me up. But this time, another man was there. The man parked his car, got out into the downpour, and ran to where I was waiting under an awning. He held the umbrella almost completely over my head, getting soaked himself as he shielded me for the few steps to the car. Leo sat in his own car, watching the scene unfold. The wipers swished back and forth, but they couldn't clear the image from his mind. The car carrying me drove away and disappeared. Years ago, he had forgotten me in a rainstorm. Now, that same rain was pouring down just for him. He smiled a bleak, empty smile and drove away, piercing the curtain of rain. He remembered our wedding night, how I had cried in pain, and he had held me. He remembered our engagement, how his grandmother had told me to come to her if Leo ever wronged me. He finally understood that he had started to fall for me the day they first met. It's a pity that people only notice the beauty of a flower once its petals have fallen. In my 2nd year of freedom, the roses at our old home had all withered. But in a small town 1,000 miles away, my grandmother's yard was bursting with blooms. Those beautiful flowers, however, no longer belonged to him. Leo looked up at the sky, afraid that in the middle of the pouring rain, he might finally begin to cry.